Today, let's recap the Scream 7 updates and theories from this past month, while also getting into a brand new update right at the end of this marathon. Now, let's talk a little bit about it.
All your friends died.
We have some ultra nasty Scream 7 updates to talk about today, including when more trailers are coming out, a new interview with a suspicious cast member, and a new image from the upcoming sequel that may just spoil the death of a certain character. So after that initial Scream 7 trailer, I know all of you are wondering when we're gonna get something else next. A few people have tagged me in a post regarding the Alberta, Canada film trailer ratings, and there appears to be 2 Scream 7 trailers listed there that were supposed to release on October 30th. So I think this is a mistake on the website's fault, as I think the other trailer that's being listed here is mistakenly Wilson Cleveland's concept trailer that he made that runs about 1:30, which is the same duration as the other trailer listed on this website. That's not a real trailer, but Wilson did a lot of good work there to make you think it was. He based a lot of those sequences in that concept trailer on some of the rumors that we've been talking about on this page. Wilson Cleveland is also responsible for the image of Dark Stu that I like to use in my thumbnails. I cannot thank him enough for making that image. Check out his page if you want to see some of his cool concept trailers for upcoming flicks. When will we get another actual Scream 7 trailer though? Well, it seems that the Scream 7 marketing is taking a slightly different approach this time around. For Scream 6, for instance, a short 1-minute teaser was released back in December of 2022, followed up by a full-length trailer in January. We then got some TV spots that roughly ran a minute long, one even for the Super Bowl that year, and then a final trailer right before the film's release the same week. My guess is that we're probably gonna get a few more TV spots this time around, like 2, 3, maybe even 4 in the next couple of months, followed up by a final trailer the same week of release for Scream 7. So basically that last week of February, I think, is when we're gonna get the next big trailer. I promise you in the next like 3-ish months that we're going to be talking about Scream 7 though, there's gonna be more things to talk about. We're gonna have some posters, we're gonna have some like weird behind the scenes interviews with cast members where they're probably gonna say some shit that they probably shouldn't have said. I mean, hell, we literally are about to talk about a brand new photo from Scream 7 today a little later on in this video. We're already getting stuff. So if you want to see more from Scream 7, no worries, I promise you more is coming. Stay patient, Scream fans. Getting into a new interview with Fresh Blood Asa Gurman, the potential ghostface suspect says, "The thing that was most exciting to me about doing Scream was Kevin Williamson. This is the first one that Kevin's directed. Kevin, who created Scream and Dawson's Creek and The Vampire Diaries and Cruel Intentions and so many things, who is the greatest guy. Getting to be a part of this journey in such a significant way was so cool. Getting to be a part of that ensemble with all those people that have been involved in the film for so long, and I'm not going to say in what capacity, but nonetheless, stepping into what was one of the coolest things ever, I think people are going to love it. I think people are going to be really, really impressed with Kevin's foray into directing Scream. He's a genius." So I really hate to be the actually guy here, but Kevin Williamson did not do the film Cruel Intentions. That film, however, features Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Felipe from Williamson's I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think that's what Gurman meant here. Also, real quick segue here while we're on the topic of Kevin Williamson projects, my lovely fiance Madison really wants me to watch a show called The Vampire Diaries that Kevin Williamson is also responsible for. I'm concerned I'm not gonna be very into it. It looks like a show that is simply about sexy vampire men. Is there an actual story there, or is that the plot? Let me know down in the comments. Gurman mentions a few interesting things about Scream 7 in this little quote here, saying that he gets to play a part of this journey in such a significant way, and that he also got to work with people who have been involved with this franchise for a while in some capacity. He seems to be keeping something hidden, especially about that last point. Now, he may just be referring to Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, 2 actresses that have almost been in every single one of these movies. I'm talking about Neve Campbell there. Courtney Cox has literally been in every single Scream movie. But I wonder if he's sharing any sequences with some of these returning dead characters. If this character is hanging out with Stu, well then there's no doubt in my mind that he's alive. Asa's character would be like -5 or 6 or 7 basically when Stu Macher had died. Regardless though, his praise for this franchise as well as slasher maestro Kevin Williamson is pretty dang cool. Now, is this a character to be suspicious of, not just because of that way too perfect jawline and the fact that he's also on that Ryan Murphy monster show for like a very brief sequence? Well, later on in this same interview with Collider, he goes on to praise Laurie Metcalf and Dermot Mulroney, 2 characters who played very similar villains, parents who had their good little boy die and then became killers themselves. Could Asa be some sort of relative of Stu's, clues, like perhaps even the son of Stu's sister Leslie. Maybe that's why he's praising the whole family motive thing in Scream so much, because he's about to be involved in a situation just like that. And everybody knows that Scream fans want to see the same repetitive family motive recycled over and over and over again with a million more sequels. So of course that's what they're doing here. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that's not what Scream 7 is about, but after that first trailer, how is it not about that?
Family, family, family.
Finally, let's talk about this brand new Scream 7 image. Not only is it a sick new shot of our favorite slasher villain, but it also appears to be outside of one of the known filming locations. I'm pretty sure this is Varner's restaurant, which we got to see the interior of in the trailer. Here's the outside of that place, and here are the same lights in the background of that very shot. So what's going on at this Applebee's style dive bar? Is Ghostface here for the half-price apps? I don't think so. So at this location in the brand new trailer, we saw the Meeks twins and Celeste O'Connor. It's not exactly clear from the trailer if all three of these characters are there at the same time, but like, it has to be the same scene, right? Chad and Mindy appear to be chatting with someone at the bar, maybe Celeste O'Connor's character, who's currently working there. That could explain why all three of these characters are there. I heard a rumor like back when production was going on for Scream 7 that Celeste O'Connor would be playing their cousin, but I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. Are you gonna try to tell me that Chad and Mindy's cousin lives in the same town that Sidney Prescott decided to move to? That's a bigger stretch than saying that Stu Macher is still alive. I do think, however, that Chad and Mindy are there to possibly aid in protection. Chad and Mindy could be making sure that Celeste O'Connor gets home safely after work, for instance. It could be a simple setup like that of course goes terribly wrong. Considering that Celeste is friends with Tatum Evans based on this shot from the trailer here, that would explain why Ghostface is targeting O'Connor during these dive bar scenes. Chad and Mindy are then seen fighting Ghostface in the kitchen, likely after hours considering that nobody is there anymore and the lights are off. This is likely when the twins are going back to pick up Celeste O'Connor's character, who is probably dead at this point. Celeste is seen hiding behind the bar here and then getting tackled by Ghostface in the next shot. I sadly don't think that's going to be our only kill from this sequence, however. There's a shot of Chad looking down in pain. Now maybe that's because his twin sister didn't win her fight with Ghostface, or because he just got stabbed in the process. And guys, this is Chad Meeks Martin we're talking about here. It's gonna take a lot more than 1 to 100 stabs to take this guy down. I sadly think that's where our new photo comes in though. My theory right now is that Chad and Mindy try to escape after their little fight with Ghostface in the kitchen, but once they get outside trying to make it to their vehicle, Chad is executed outside in front of Varner's by Ghostface, making sure he doesn't get wheeled into an ambulance with his thumb high in the air this time. I promise you that it's not just because of this new photo that I think this is gonna happen. There's a few other clues with the shots I've already shown you that make me think that Chad is specifically the one who's gonna go in this sequence. Something else I've noticed is that Mindy is wearing a bulletproof vest in these restaurant scenes, which I think will come back in a darkly funny way. Mindy is our new Randy character, meaning that she is meta as fuck. Mindy has not only been criticized for constantly being wrong about the new slasher situations, but also never making it to the final Ghostface fight. I think when Mindy and Chad are reintroduced, Mindy is going to be talking about how this time around, I'm making it to that final fight, baby. It's gonna be presented as a fun little joke at first. Mindy has a bulletproof vest that she's wearing throughout the entire flick. Maybe Chad makes fun of her for it, saying that's a little ridiculous, don't you think? They're gonna have their typical sibling fight banter that is just business as usual, one might think, but really it's setting up a very emotional death for Chad. It's this lack of preparation on his part that will likely lead to his unfortunate downfall. Mindy, however, will make it to the third act, but paying a very heavy price by leaving her brother behind. All of this is even set up in a very similar way to Dewey's death from Scream 2022. I mean, if Chad is there to protect Celeste O'Connor, a character that he probably doesn't know, doesn't that kind of sound exactly like how Dewey died in the 5th Scream film? Many people have compared both Dewey Riley and Chad Meeks Martin together as very similar characters. They're lovable, teddy bear-like characters whose brains are way smaller than their hearts.
How are you alive?
I have to admit, I celebrated a little bit when he gave that thumbs up at the end. I don't think that's gonna happen here, however, as that was a major criticism of Scream 6. Dude got stabbed a million times in every single vital organ and somehow still lived to see the next day. With Scream 7 seemingly having a darker tone, I think they're gonna undo that little movie magic at the end of Scream 6. I think we got robbed of an emotional death in Scream 6. Gail should have died in that flick. I love Gail Weathers, but dude, what was the point of that scene if she wasn't gonna die?
How does it feel to lose the only man who ever loved you?
Fuck you.
I want an emotional death in a Scream film, and killing Chad off would definitely do that. My heart would be broken. I want to feel something, damn it. Currently, there are 6 Scream films with a 7th on the horizon coming out this February. So for right now, let's do a little tier list of all 6 of these bad boys before the 7th entry drops next year. Let's talk a little bit about it. All right, let's break down how we're going to rank these bad boys on the tier list. First up, at the tippy top, these are the best of the best. We're going to Jill's Jelly Factory. What kind of jellies and jams is she making at the factory? Only the very best, the perfect movies go up in this category. Underneath that is Billy's Luscious Locks. They may be a little greasy, but we still love them. Mid-Sid, these are middle of the road movies. Just, they're okay, they're decent. Randy's Hidden Gems are movies that had a lot of potential, but maybe didn't quite reach those heights. And finally, Detective Bailey. I don't think I have to explain why he's on the bottom. Starting off with the original, this is such an easy one. This goes all the way up to the Jelly Factory, ladies and gentlemen. This is a perfect movie, a very rare, amazing slasher film. You're not gonna get better than the original Scream film. I don't think this is a hot take even remotely to say this is gonna be the best of the best on the entire list. This video is gonna lose a lot of steam fast because I just think everything else that has come from this franchise is still very good, but you're just never gonna top that original. It reinvigorated the slasher subgenre, which I mean, that's an insane task. That is a subgenre that has had countless movies that have felt just repetitive and undercooked, not very great. Scream found a way to do it better than ever. The characters in this flick are super iconic. I love Sidney Prescott as a leading lady. I truly think she is the best final girl as of right now. Hopefully 7 doesn't ruin that. Randy as a character is such a fresh take on horror as well. He's the horror fan in universe who knows what's going to happen and no one is listening to him. As Randy would say, there's a very simple formula to making this character work. It's something that feels like it should have been done earlier than 1996. Many other movie characters from the years that would follow would kind of do some sort of riff off of Randy. I think one of the best examples is the stoner in Cabin in the Woods. But the Scream franchise has also tried to replace Randy in subsequent sequels. Kirby, I think they did a pretty good job with. Mindy, not as much, because she's quite literally the opposite of Randy. Randy lacked confidence, but was right about everything. Mindy is the exact opposite. She is very confident and wrong about everything, and I think that's kind of the problem with her character. I'm hoping they course correct with that here in this upcoming 7th installment. It's one of the many facets of the original Scream film that I just love. Randy is this character that we should be listening to, but nobody does because he's just a dorky dork. The meta commentary is super great, super poignant, super sharp. Some of the other sequels kind of hit on something similar to that, but nothing as great as this original film. The romance between Dewey Riley and Gale Weathers starts to spark here, and I'm pretty sure Billy and Stu were in a relationship as well. Scream was incredibly ahead of its time. There was never any chance that a sequel was going to top it. I love this movie to death. Next up on the list, we have Scream 2, and some people would go so far as to say that Scream 2 is a better film than the original. I just don't see that. I think there is a lot to love about Scream 2. I think it hits on the commentary angle just as well as the original. The idea that these movies are being made based on real life trauma and people are celebrating these movies like they're a fun thing and it doesn't have to do with anything in real life, even though it very much so does. I think Mickey being the killer in this movie is such a great choice. The Tarantino film student, as he's described, he wants to blame it on the movies and get away with murder for that reason. I just think that's brilliant. To me, that is the most Scream motive out there. I think he's like the best Scream killer without a doubt. Scream 2 has some high highs, but I also think it has some valleys as well. If you've been hanging around this channel for a while, you know that my biggest Scream hot take is that I am just not a fan of Mrs. Loomis. Everybody loves this character to death, Billy's mother being the killer. I think she actually ruins half of this movie. That's why I gotta put this one in mid-Sid. It's middle of the road for me. I like Scream 2 quite a bit. It is still a very fun watch, but had they focused just entirely on the meta horror commentary angle and not Billy's mother, I think this movie would have been right up there alongside the original. Scream 3, also a movie that I know is beloved by Scream fans. I do really enjoy this one. Once again, I think it has some really sharp commentary. I love everything that they're doing with John Milton, which is a total stab at Harvey Weinstein, the producer of these original 4 movies, who turned out to be a real-life monster. Yikes. Many people, including Wes Craven and the writer of this flick, Aaron Kruger, were clearly commenting on that here, with the character of John Milton, played excellently by horror legend Lance Henriksen. That's probably my favorite part of Scream 3. The mystery I don't think is very good. Roman is very obvious in my opinion, but I do love his performance as Ghostface in the third act. His whole back and forth with Sidney is tense and powerful. I don't like that he's a secret brother. That is not a good twist. That is soap opera all day, but I do have a lot of love for 3, so I think I can't put it in Detective Bailey. That feels too harsh for a movie that does get a few things very much so right. Another thing I want to mention before we move on from Scream 3 is I also think that Sidney's storyline really takes off in this flick. That's another thing that is a very strong element of this movie. I just wish the Ghostface killer mystery was more interesting and the kills were actually present. There's like one good chase and kill in this entire movie, and that's a big problem. That's something that really weighs this one down for me. Even Scream, the franchise that is the overachiever of the slasher genre, has to have those core staples of what makes a slasher movie just that. You gotta have some good kills, you gotta have a scary killer, and half the time this film does not have that. Moving into Scream 4, baby, this is my favorite sequel. I love Scream 4 to death. I think this is a banger. It has a great murder mystery with a shocking twist at the end, a very of the times motive, and unfortunately didn't do very well at the box office. I don't understand that at all. This movie rocks. Scream 4 is a banger. It's going in Billy's luscious locks. Jill is probably my favorite Ghostface killer. I love Mickey and I think he's crazy underrated. He has the best motive, but in terms of like what he gets to do in that third act, it's not a whole lot. He kind of just shows up and gets shot in the face. Jill actually gets to take over the show for a little while here. Scream 4's downfall is when it gets a little too campy. Scream 4's opening is something that has been critiqued quite a bit. I appreciate it from a distance, but it is just a little much when you're watching it. It's sort of like a catch-up throughout the 2000s, kind of going over all the different talking points in horror. A lot of this movie can be described that way, I feel. The meta commentary is just a little too in your face at times, and it just gets a little too cheesy. But when this movie is just taking itself seriously and going absolutely berserk, I think we see the scariest Ghostface of maybe the entire franchise here, especially with that Olivia kill. That is bloody, brutal, amazing setup as well. Just so much to love about that one. A great misdirection too. You think that Ghostface is coming after Kirby and Jill, but really he's over at the next house. This was my first Scream movie as well, so I think that's why it just holds a very special place in my heart for that reason. But this twist ending, the great kills, a really scary Ghostface, it just makes for an excellent Scream sequel. I love Scream 4. Scream 5 captures a lot of the same energy of Scream 4, but just not quite as much as what that film was able to accomplish. And I think that's why I gotta put it just slightly above Scream 2 and mid-Sid. Scream 5 is another one of those movies where I feel like it's 50-50. Like there's some great stuff about this flick and there's some not so great stuff about this one. You have an opening scene where there's no deaths. That's really boring. The first kill of this movie is Vince just getting poked in the neck by Ghostface. What? Come on. Thankfully, Scream 2022 makes up for that a little later on with some really brutal kills for Judy, Wes Hicks, and also, of course, an emotional one, Dewey Riley. Dewey is probably my favorite Scream character, and to see him get viciously mauled here, oh my god, it breaks my heart every single time. You gotta love that about the flick, even if you think it's a massive mistake. It is a very big swing, and I think I put it above Scream 2 simply because the killer reveal really got me, where in Scream 2, it just didn't. Debbie Salt is just so unbelievably obvious throughout all of Scream 2. I had that figured out from like basically the first scene she was hanging out here. Richie, yes, maybe a little obvious too, but he just gives such a better killer performance. I'm so sorry. Laurie Metcalf is way too over the top in Scream 2 to be playing a sad and sullen parent. Similar problems in Scream 6, but we'll talk about that one in a sec. Amber's reveal is up there with Jill's. It is just as shocking, and oh my god, when she blows Liv's head off, that is unbelievable. That, on top of a very relevant motive on toxic fandom, makes Scream 5 a very welcome entry into this series. You gotta have a good murder mystery that can save an entire film like I think it does with this movie, even though the side characters of this movie are possibly the most lackluster of the entire series. The murder mystery being so solid with this one really saves it for me and pushes it up there. Again, 50-50, but a little more towards the positives on Scream 2022 versus Scream 2 for me. Now we have Scream 6, which I think is possibly my hottest take of the entire series. I'm putting this one up in Billy's luscious locks. The murder mystery is terrible here in Scream 6. This movie leaves you on a very, very sour note. I will give you that, and I completely understand why people do not like this movie for that reason. The positives with Scream 6, I just think outweigh the bad. There is that one very big thing that I don't like about this movie. The killers are very lackluster lackluster and I think easily the worst of the series. But the opening scene is so unbelievably inventive, bringing some crazy fan theories to life. People hate the kills in this movie. I don't understand that. Yes, it's a lot of like no-name characters getting got, but man, those kills are awesome. We get robbed of an emotional death from Gale Weathers in this movie for sure. I don't think she should have lived, but also it wouldn't have made sense. Where's Sidney Prescott in that situation? You couldn't get Neve Campbell for this movie, so you had to write it that way. My conspiracy theory is that Gale was supposed to die in that sequence in Scream 6, but obviously it wouldn't have made sense if Sidney Prescott wasn't going to be there to then try to avenge her, just like how she did in Scream 5 for Dewey. I think Scream 6 has the scariest Ghostface right up there with Scream 4 as well. I loved the cracked mask design, which obviously they borrowed from Halloween 2018, but I don't mind. I think it's sick as fuck to have a Ghostface mask variant in universe. Now, I mean, we've never really had that before. Don't mess with perfection, you know, I agree with that, but I just really like the cracked mask design in this movie. It totally rocks. The bodega sequence is one of the most tense scenes in this entire series, as well as the ladder crossing, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a ladder to be in a New York apartment. No, but does it make any sense for a bike to be on the third floor of a sorority house? Also no. People will argue that there are a ton of gaps in logic here in Scream 6, but there are gaps in logic in all 6 of these movies, let's be honest here. Why would a guy who wants revenge on a single person use a knife to kill all of their friends first? Scream 6 is definitely asking you to suspend your disbelief, but can you have fun with it? I absolutely can. I love this sequel. It is number 3 for me. The brutality and misdirection of like 80% of this flick is just so phenomenal. I can excuse the really dumb repeat motive that they steal from Scream 2 at the end here. I think had this movie ended on a better note, more people would really vibe with it, but most of this is pretty fantastic up until you get to that third act, and then it's just like, what the fuck? This is where I rank the series as of right now, but of course, Scream 7 is on the horizon here. I'm predicting as of right now that I think Scream 7 is either going to be at the bottom of Billy's Luscious Locks or right at the top of Mid-Sid. I'm predicting that Scream 7 is going to be my new like number 4 in the franchise. It's going to be right in the middle of my rankings. Now, obviously, this is a lot of speculation, but based on what we already know about Scream 7, there are things I like and there are things I dislike. But I could be totally wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this is a total banger. I'm guessing right now it's probably going to be my number 4 or maybe even my number 5. So far, none of these movies are Detective Bailey bad, though. This is a very consistent franchise where I think all 6 entries are very much so worth a watch or good films in general. Hopefully, Scream 7 doesn't break that streak. The Scream 7 trailer is packed with what some fans are calling STUS clues, not to be confused with the popular kids television program, however, with the suffocating dog. Jesus Christ, he's blue, Steve. Give him the Heimlich maneuver.
Oh.
Are these many clues a nod to the miraculously alive and cartoonish villain, or do they mean something else entirely? Let's talk a little bit about it. Stu Macher is a rare Ghostface killer for a number of reasons. Matthew Lillard's standout performance is as hilarious as it is terrifying and memorable. Many want to see this character return since his apparent demise via TV in the original film. Stu was technically never shot in the head, just like his accomplice Billy, and that seems to be the only way to take one of these evil doers down. So is Stu Macher alive, and did he wait 30 years to finally go after Sidney Prescott and her daughter again? Well, let's talk a little bit about it, because the trailer has a ton of different clues that are totally referencing this guy in particular. Our first Stu clue came well before the trailer even came out. Matthew Lillard was cast in the film as Stu Macher. Now, if the only returning dead character was Matthew Lillard as Stu Macher, you got me. He's coming back as Stu. The dead are no longer dead. But alongside this announcement, we also learned that Scott Foley is back as Roman Bridger and that David Arquette would return as Dewey Riley. Something else has got to be going on here, because these two characters are definitely dead without a doubt. Unless we're just retconning shit and bringing back characters from the past, there's no way these characters are also alive. It's arguable with Stu. With Roman and Dewey Riley, no way, dude. They are dead as a doornail. Getting into the trailer, however, we literally start this thing at Stu's house, which Ghostface later burns down, but diving into the nitty-gritty of the inside of this house that has been turned into a stab Airbnb, we never see Stu's body outline on the ground, just like the other killers who have died there in the past. Just because we didn't see it in the trailer doesn't mean it's not in the movie, however. We never see the floor in front of the TV in the living room, so who knows if it's there or not. After Ghostface attacks this couple that's staying at the Airbnb, we see Michelle Randolph fall from a swinging chandelier right onto a knife that Ghostface points up at the right time. This reminds me a lot of the TV falling onto Stu's head. It kind of parallels that in a way. If this is Stu underneath the mask, this would be a really subtle thematic clue that he's getting the upper hand now. There was a point where a TV fell on his head and killed him. Now he's raising the knife up. He's ready for anything falling on him, including his next victim. As we move away from the opening scene, Ghostface is talking with Sidney on the phone once again, where Roger L. Jackson specifically says, "Nice small town you found, reminds me of where we grew up." This one's pretty obvious, but Stu also grew up in Woodsboro, California. Also a small town, albeit very rich, maybe much more money in that town than there is Pine Grove, Indiana, but a small town nonetheless. Speaking of Sidney, she specifically tells her daughter over the phone, who's currently being attacked by Ghostface, maybe Stu, that you have to shoot them in the head. A rule that has been burned into her brain after Randy said it long, long ago. And also probably because of the fact that she has shot multiple Ghostfaces in the head now. Again, Stu was never shot in the head. And finally, the absolute biggest thing from the trailer is we quite literally hear the voice of Matthew Lillard say this is gonna be fun at the end of the trailer.
Gonna be fun.
So are all of these clues indicators that the character is still alive? Genuinely putting my bias aside here, I don't want to see dead characters in general return to this franchise in any way, shape, or form. Not even my favorite character from Scream, which is probably Stu Macher. I love Stu to death. I love Dewey to death. Roman, I even kind of have a little love for at this point. I don't want to see them come back from the dead, but in terms of what is actually happening here, will this actually happen in Scream 7? We're bringing back Stu Macher, we're bringing back Roman, we're bringing back Dewey. I genuinely do not think so. All of these teases that I just talked about are egregiously pointing towards the character of Stu Macher. Most of these things you probably already picked up on. Don't we feel like that's a little too obvious? Of course this fan base is going to think that one of their favorite killers is back from the dead, doing all of the killings once again. They are not playing it coy by any means whatsoever. There has to be some sort of misdirection here. There's no way the big reveal of the movie is that Stu is alive, especially after the way that they're beginning the marketing campaign here. I mean, we still have 3.5 months to go until the movie comes out, and you're telling me the whole internet has this movie figured out? I just don't believe that a Scream marketing team would do that. I don't believe that director Kevin Williamson, who loves this franchise, especially the mystique surrounded around it, would want to do something like that in the initial trailer. Not to say that he has total control over something like that, but I strongly doubt that a murder mystery franchise would want to give away their biggest surprise in the trailer. I think there's a major misdirection coming, and there's even little clues of that if we read the film's plot description as well as a single line of dialogue from Ghostface that may just give a little piece of it away. The plot description for Scream 7, which was released alongside the trailer, reads, "When a new Ghostface killer emerges in the quiet town where Sidney Prescott has built a new life, her darkest fears are realized as her daughter becomes the next target. Determined to protect her family, Sidney must face the horrors of her past to put an end to the bloodshed once and for all." There's also a line in the new trailer where Ghostface says, "I'm not going to hurt her until you're here to see it," referring to Sidney having to watch her daughter die. This is one of the biggest reasons why I don't think it's Stu. Why would Stu care about her daughter? If Stu has been waiting for 30 years for whatever reason to kill Sidney Prescott, why would he go after her daughter? That just doesn't make any sense to me. He only cares about Sidney Prescott. If he is alive and returns as a Ghostface killer, his motive would have to be simple revenge, or else you're just doing the character a disservice by not having them actually be in character. Stu Macher is absolutely no mastermind genius, at least that's not the impression that I got from him in that original Scream film.
What are you saying? That I killed her?
It would certainly improve your high school kill.
Neither did Tatum, apparently.
Stupidity leak.
Easy.
Someone who might care about making Sidney watch her own daughter die could be Stu's sister Leslie Macher, however. Leslie lost her son during the events of Scream 2022. Vince was the first kill in that flick, if you remember, simply getting poked in the neck. Now, although these Ghostface killings didn't directly tie to Sidney Prescott, Leslie Macher could still blame her for kicking this whole thing off in the first place. If the events in '96 never happened, the requel murders wouldn't have either. Ghostface and Sidney will forever be bound in this franchise, and maybe the latest killer wants Sid to suffer in the same way she has. Now, I know many of you are already typing comments about how Stu Macher is actually alive, and I'm totally wrong. Trust me, I read the comments on every single one of these videos. The one thing I think we can agree here is that there is very obviously some sort of connection to Stu as a character in this upcoming flick. There's no way there isn't after all of those points made earlier on. His sister being the killer would be a major misdirection and would make sense based on this series' track record as well. Ever since Debbie Salt, almost all of the Scream sequels have been about a disgruntled family member looking to taste blood. Scream has unfortunately developed tropes of its own now after once making fun of that in other series. I still love this franchise, but it has become predictable in some ways. One of those ways is the fact that most of the sequel killers are family members, so it wouldn't shock me if Scream 7 did something similar to that. This would also technically be the second time a sister turned killer if we're counting Quinn from Scream 6, but at least it's like the sister of a better Ghostface. No disrespect towards Richie, but Stu is definitely better than him. Even though I think this is 100% what's going on here. I hope I am dead wrong. I hope that it's Blue from Blue's Clues underneath the mask, going after Steve for never getting that treat unlodged from his throat. Bow, 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 bow. But the thing about Scream 7 is with Kevin Williamson writing, I have a lot of faith that they're still gonna find ways to shock and surprise us. For instance, who is Leslie Mocker's accomplice? I've heard a few similar theories online talk about how it could be another one of her kids, like McKenna Grace or Asa Gurman, but I think it would be way cooler to see someone more unlikely. Like, let's say that we have Leslie Mocker figured out right now. Anna Camp is super suspicious the entire time, just like Detective Bailey in Scream 6, but the big surprise comes from her accomplice, whoever else could be working with her. She diverts the attention of the audience, and the real shock in the third act comes when the accomplice is revealed. That's kind of similar to what the original Scream movie did with Billy. In my opinion, Stu was kind of the big shocker. It would also be cool if this other killer has a totally different motive than Leslie Mocker versus familial revenge. Like, it could be something similar to Mrs. Loomis and Mickey's relationship. What if Leslie is working with a killer who simply wants to put Sidney and her family in the ground to be the Ghostface who finally did it? I've pitched this theory before about a Ghostface who views the Prescott Evans family as a white whale of sorts. I'm bringing it up again to say that that theory isn't dead. That could just be the other Ghostface's motive. The most recent Scream films have made it so that both of the killers pretty much have the same motive. This is something that the series has really only ever done in Scream 2, to have two conflicting motives. Can we do it better than Scream 2, I ask? I think we can, and I think it would be sick if that's what Scream 7 was setting up here. Making one thing very, very obvious, you know, like playing into a fan theory that is as old as sin, diverting attention while something else entirely is going on in the background that we don't even know shit about. Now that would be a killer mystery. If there's any point to be made with this video, it's that anything is still possible with Scream 7, even Stu Macher still being alive. Is there a way that we could write off Sidney? Because we know she's not gonna die, that's already been said so many times. Is there a way to write this character off and just close that arc forever?
Well, I mean, you know, I've said this many times, 3 was just such a good way that they closed it off. And so you can't really, you can't redo that. But obviously if her family is intact to some degree or what have you, that's how you do it. You know, I mean, at this point in her life, her most important thing is her family, you know, which I will say is cool that it raises the stakes for her. The downside, as you've said many times, is that we know that she's not gonna die. But you know what? Wouldn't it be crazy? And look, nobody in the chat get mad at me, okay? Because I love Sidney Prescott as much as anybody. I really do. But wouldn't it be just a hiccup if whenever this thing is over, whether it's 8 or 9, if they do the 9 and it's like a whole arc, that she actually does die, you know, maybe saving her child or one of her children or whatever. Like, I don't know, but every final, the cool way, the happy way is just that her family's safe and she's happy with her family, and let her go and, you know, have her life.
At this point, every final girl or guy or whatever has died. I mean, all of them. Seven installments in, right? I mean, Laurie Strode's died a bunch of times. You know, and Nancy's died. Like, you name it. Alice died, right? Like, you know, all of, like, eventually they end up dying, right?
Yep. Sally died.
Yeah, Sally died, right? Like,
viciously.
And that's my thing. Like, even Kevin Williamson recently spoke on how he wants Sidney to have a happy ending, right? Like, was his whole thing. And it's like, how? Like, how can Sidney have a happy ending when you keep, like, and that's the thing I see, like, with the fandom, period, right? You get a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want Sidney to die. I want her to have a happy ending, but I don't want Scream movies without Sidney. You can't have both, right? Like, Sidney can't have a happy ending and we continue to make Scream movies, which they're not going to stop, right? So, like, you can't, like, so either A, you're okay with having Scream and no Sidney, or you're okay with her not having a happy ending, because she can't have a happy ending. She's constantly be attacked. And then also the trailer, it looks like Mark dies. How could she have a happy ending if her husband dies, right? Like, or if her daughter dies? So
Because Patrick Dempsey could swoop in and swoon her.
and be the
Yeah.
Dr. Sexy, Dr. Sexy MD, right? Like,
I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
like at this point, I don't think she can have a happy ending. I thought after Scream 5, Scream 6, they did a great job, right? Then they mentioned, hey, you know, what about Sidney? Should we call her? And Gail's like, you know what? She deserves her happiness. She deserves her peace. I thought that was a great kind of ending to her because it's like, okay, she came back one last time to avenge Dewey. That's the only thing that would get her back. The only thing that get her back is to avenge her you know, one of the loves of her life in Dewey Riley, and take out Ghostface. She did it. She accomplished it. Rode off in the sunset. She's happy. She has her family now. She has her husband. Life's good. Happy ending. But no, we had to bring her back, and it's why I keep saying, like, I don't want to keep bringing her back. I understand why you did it for this film, but at some point, it's like, just let her be. Like, so.
Yeah, I think at some point, like, I would be so fine with just this movie. Like, let's say 7 just ends with her, you know, defeating Ghostface once again. She saved her family, and we never come back to Sidney Prescott. I'd be fine with that. I think that would be a fine way to finish off her story. Just to say that, hey, she defended her family. And I think when you look at other franchises that have gone on as long as Scream, that have, you know, found our main character now has a family, there's a baby involved. These are typically where a lot of franchises go to die, like when characters like this have a kid. So I could see this like being the last one, you know, in a lot of ways, and with Sidney at least. You know, kind of closing that story off and then just moving Scream into a whole new direction moving forward, which I think some people never want to hear that. Some people are like Scream is Sidney Prescott, and I totally understand that. But again, I have to agree with Fate here. They're gonna keep, like, Scream is going to outlive Neve Campbell. It's going to outlive Courtney Cox and David Arquette. Like, this is too big of a franchise not to. Halloween, you know what I mean? Halloween has gone on for 13 movies, and that it was never the intention.
Right. Never.
In the first place. Never.
Nowhere near.
No. Knight and I just talked about that.
It's only a matter of time before we're about to get an announcement for a new Halloween trilogy.
Right.
Like,
yeah, we're gonna get another one. Like,
within the next 5 years.
But see, the thing about Halloween, every other franchise, every other major franchise, the advantage that they have is that the main draw is the villain. You know, you're seeing Halloween for Michael. You know, you're seeing Elm Street for Freddy, Friday for Jason. And even though we have characters that are big in them, especially Laurie Strode, Laurie's not in every film. And Laurie, like you guys have said, obviously has been killed off, and she's been played by a different actress because she's not the draw. It's Michael. Whereas with Scream, it's the only major horror franchise where it's the opposite. Like, Ghostface is obviously well known, you know, great on the poster, but it was the characters that really drew people in, especially the OG 3. And then, of course, they moved to the core 4. And so it's been a gift and a curse for Scream. And I've always contemplated that conundrum, because it's like, at some point, Neve Campbell is not going to do a Scream film. We have to move on. We already killed off Dewey. We have to move forward. And it's ironic, too, because with Scream, anybody could be Ghostface for any reason on the planet. You could do anything, anywhere. Doesn't have to be on a certain holiday. It doesn't have to be at a certain campground. It doesn't have to be on a certain street in the USA. It could be anywhere, but yet it's shackled. So it's interesting to me. It really is.
I don't know. I would argue with. Go ahead, Jake. Sorry, did you?
I'll just say I think there is a way that you could unshackle it. You know what I mean? Where like, I do agree, like, Michael Myers, like, just because of his MO, you know what I mean? He's always going to be going back to Haddonfield. It would be a near impossible task, I think, to write. And there's really not, if you look at the whole franchise, there's not too many that don't take place in Haddonfield in the Halloween series. That's a hard thing to write, you know, unless you're changing up, you know, the DNA of who Michael Myers is. With Ghostface, you can kind of just apply that to any group of character in that world with what they've done in the sequels, kind of what they've developed Ghostface into, especially especially with 6. Like 6 turns Ghostface into like this thing that, you know, people are kind of obsessed with online. And maybe certain unsavory groups decide to don the mask for whatever sinister purpose they may have. So I feel like if that's the route that they push the franchise in next, you can have whoever characters, but I do agree that you can't just throw, you know, B-list characters at this franchise. It won't work. You have to have characters that you're gonna love at the core of this thing, otherwise it's not Scream. So that to me is the hurdle moving forward. It's creating characters who are great that will become beloved just like these characters, and that's a really difficult task. That's probably one of the hardest parts of making a new Scream movie. Scream 7 has an incredibly large cast of characters, some returning to the franchise, some fresh blood as well. What will be the fate of the 19 confirmed cast members of Scream 7? Let's talk a little bit about it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into business. Unfortunately, we don't have any funny tier names today like a lot of the other videos where we've done tier lists on this page, but we have some really interesting categories to go over nonetheless. Our top tier here, survive. They survived the movie. Die. They die. They're the ghost face if they're in Ghosty. I wanted to make this ghost face, but watch what happens when I do this. So I type it and then the E goes on the bottom. It's not ghost fac E. I don't like that. Man, my ADHD is going nuts right now. Next up is flashbacks, so maybe characters who are dead coming back to potentially be in flashbacks, and then of course, characters who are coming back just to be used as AI voices. Cracking into this list here, we have Anna Camp to start off. I wanted to get this one out of the way because I feel like we have talked to death about Anna Camp. I believe she's definitely going to be playing Leslie Mocker, Stu's sister, and I think she's our lead Ghostface this time around. So we've talked about that enough if you've seen any of the other videos or live streams on this page. Asa Gurman is another one where I feel like a lot of people have theories regarding this fella. He's somebody who has a ghost face look about him. He kind of has that Michael Fassbender thing going on where he's a little too perfect that it's scary. But if I'm being honest, I think this guy is a red herring. So I think he's gonna die. He's gonna be like our Liv of this movie. Instead of Amber Freeman shooting him in the face, I think Anna Camp is gonna stick a knife in his neck. Next up, we have Celeste O'Connor. We literally see this character die in the trailer, dude. There's no way her getting tackled by Ghostface doesn't result in a brutal death. 100% thinking that bar sequence that she's getting chased around in, I think that's gonna lead to her ultimate demise. Dewey Riley, our first legacy character, how is he being utilized in this film? Unfortunately, I really think it's gonna be an AI voice, and this is gonna be probably a big criticism of mine regarding Scream 7, unless they find a way to subvert this, of course. But I think they're just bringing back David Arquette for the voice of Ghostface this time around, essentially. I think they're going to be utilizing an AI tech, our ghost faces this time around, to essentially terrorize our legacy characters with the voices of the dead. I could totally see Gale Weathers getting a call from Ghostface and it sounds like Dewey the entire time. I mean, that would be terrifying. We got a little taste of that in Scream 6 when Ghostface was making fun of Gale because she lost Dewey in the previous entry. So I feel like we're just taking that a step up here with David Arquette literally coming back to do some Ghostface lines. Even though I'm disappointed by that because I would love to see David Arquette back as this character in a flashback, I think there is going to be some fun to listening to Dewey try to do some Ghostface lines. I think that might actually be kind of interesting. So I'm open-minded to it. I think that this is going to be a new and improved version of Scream 3 in a lot of ways. Next up, we got Ethan Embry. We're hearing he plays a small role in the psychiatric hospital, which has been confirmed through some like behind-the-scenes photos that came out. I really think this character is going to survive. This might be a hot take, but I don't think he's going to be like getting chased around, getting killed or nothing. If there is a scene at a psychiatric hospital, I could see this being like a scene of research, really quick to learn something to get us to the next plot point. He's just gonna show up, give us a vital piece of exposition, and then peace out. Gale Weathers is another character who I kind of want to see die, if I'm being honest. I feel like we have just done enough with her character. We're starting to get to that point with Gale where I just don't even care what's happening with her anymore. Whenever I cut back to her in Scream 6, I just feel like these are some of the weakest moments of that entire film, unfortunately, which I think sucks because this used to be one of my favorite Scream characters. I loved what they were doing with her, especially in Screams 1 and 2. I think I kind of want this character to die, but with this movie still having that feel of, hey, we're starting anew with the legacy characters. We're going to give you a brand new story with them. I could see them keeping her alive for now, to potentially kill her once an arc is completed once again. But maybe this is an opportunity to actually do something fresh with the character that we haven't done before, and instead of spinning our wheels, actually going somewhere. Jimmy Tatro, so unbelievably dead after what we saw of what I believe is the opening scene in the new film where Stu's house burns down. I think this is 100% our opening kill, one of them, I should say. So Jimmy Tatro definitely dead, body burning in that huge fire that we're gonna get to kick this one off. Joel McHale is Mark Evans, Sidney's husband. I think dead meat, honestly. I think we once again saw this character die in the trailer. We see him getting tackled by Ghostface and then stabbed in the neck a whole bunch, spewing up a bunch of blood into a plastic bag. And I think there's an argument to say, well, what if that's a cut? What if that's not really him? I think there's no way it's not him, if I'm being totally honest. I don't mind this, though. I've made the point many times that I just don't see Joel McHale and Neve Campbell having a lot of chemistry, and it's not that I think either is a bad performer by any means, but when I see that face, when I see Joel McHale, I think Jeff Winger. I think the shitty asshole boss that keeps perving on Mila Kunis in Ted. I don't see this character being a faithful, loyal husband to Sidney Prescott, which is what she needs, which is who would be her husband after everything she's gone through. If this character is only in the movie for like the first half and dies, I think that's just going to give more weight to this story, and I think will be for the better. No offense to Joel McHale, I just feel like this is a bit of a miscast. Again, this is not me saying I dislike any of the performers. I just think visually this is not going to work for an audience that is so familiar with Community and Ted and the hundreds of other assholery roles that Joel McHale is known for. This is probably my biggest hot take of the whole video. Mason Gooding as Chad, I think, is going to die, and this bums me out, dude. It does. But based on the trailer, we're getting a lot of coverage of Mindy, specifically from the Meeks Martin twins. And I think they're doing that on purpose to make you think that Mindy's going to die, but this is a big misdirection. I think there's always misdirection in these Scream trailers. I know a lot of people want to, complain about Screams 5 and 6 for being predictable, but they did do a lot of work in the marketing to try to keep those secrets safe until the movie actually released.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
For instance, in the Scream 5 trailer, they made it look like Jenna Ortega actually just dies in the opening scene. That, of course, doesn't happen. Scream 6, it made it seem like Laura Crane was the opening kill of the movie, when there was really so much more to it than just that. We got 2 Ghostface reveals within the first 10 minutes of that one. So with this movie, I feel like they're trying to do some misdirection as well. I don't know, we're going to talk about Stu in a second here, but in terms of getting an emotional death, I feel like 7 is going to have to deliver on that. 6, one of the biggest criticisms of that film was that we didn't really get too many kills that had some weight to them. Like, a lot of the deaths were, background characters that were just getting stabbed and offed, and that was it. We were moving past it real quick. I think this movie is absolutely going to have an emotional death, and a character that I think a lot of the fan base, especially the newer people, have latched onto is Chad. This one's gonna hurt, ladies and gentlemen. I want Scream to make me feel things, damn it, and this will make me cry. Just like how I'm going to bawl my eyes out when fucking Steve dies in Stranger Things Season 5. Getting back to this, though, we got McKenna Grace up next. I definitely think she's a ghost face, way too big of a star not to be, in my opinion, or to not play a vital role in this film one way, shape, or form. What I think is going on here is McKenna Grace is likely going to be the daughter of Anna Camp. Leslie Mocker, I feel like her motive is just going to come from a basic familial revenge. It's something that the Scream franchise is totally obsessed with and rarely deviates from. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say it's an angry, disgruntled family member who wants to kill Sidney because they're pissed off. Leslie Mocker actually does have a reason to kill. Her son died 2 movies ago, so maybe she's just been brewing in the background, formulating a plan this entire time, and then getting ready to go after Sidney for that. I think the daughter would also be pretty upset as well. It's basically a repeat of Scream 6, but I feel like a lot of Scream 7 is going to be Kevin Williamson's own version of Scream 6. We know that Kevin loves Scream 6 to death after a recent interview where he was talking about the sequel. Here's Scream 6 starring Sidney Prescott. I feel like that's going to be the review of this movie once we're walking out of the theater for it. Michelle Randolph absolutely dying in that opening scene, like without a doubt in my mind. She's fallen on that knife. It's going to be a crazy kill for Ghostface, really out there. there. Is it a little camp? Sure, but like I'm still loving the dark tone mixed with the campy vibes of what was teased to us in the Scream 7 trailer. Ghostface rolling over, pointing a knife straight up and sticking it into her abdomen. I mean, yeah, that would be pretty crazy. I love that. So lots of blood, but also, isn't that a little silly? Well, of course it is. Speaking of this opening scene, Jordan Adams from our little YouTube community here has actually just sent me a video of him and his wife recreating this opening scene that I real quickly want to play for you guys.
This is it.
Can't believe we're staying at the Psycho Killer B&B.
Oh, that's so cool. It's a motion detector.
That is so awesome. Jordan and his wife actually just celebrated their 12th anniversary going to the Stu Macher house, which is so awesome. Congratulations, you two, and thank you so much for sending that my way. Mindy Meeks Martin. I feel like she's going to avenge Chad and survive. Man, we got to do something with Mindy. Like, the last couple of movies, everything that she's kind of set up and put into place has sort of gone nowhere. I think the best thing that they've done with Mindy so far is setting up this new relationship between her and Annika, and then Annika dies. I'm gonna be honest, that's my favorite thing they've done with Mindy, and it was about another character's death. Her as a Randy character doesn't work for me. She is constantly wrong and overly confident. And what I loved about Randy is he's this nervous, anxious little ball of, just horror movie fandom and so much knowledge on these films, and no one is listening to him. Like, he's right. Like, oh my God, listen to Randy, but no one wants to listen to him because he's a dork. I think if they were to, sort of course correct with this character and do something else with her, like killing off her brother, we might feel for her a little bit more. That seemed to work a little bit with Annika in Scream 6. That was a big high point of that movie for me personally. So I feel like they might be trying to recreate some of that magic here by killing off Chad, give us a really emotional death, which sends Mindy into a total spiral and going through her own grief arc, essentially, very similar to what I'm sure Courtney Cox is going to be going through in this movie as well. Mark Consuelos potentially playing the new love interest for Gale Weathers here. I think this character's probably gonna die. I'm gonna be honest. I think we're gonna have another very emotional and brutal death for Gale. Maybe she's just starting to come around to this guy, and then he gets stabbed the fuck up and ultimately dies. Gale is a hardened veteran now, just like Sidney Prescott, I feel, and she's gonna go through another emotional loss, just like Sidney will in this film with Mark Evans. You gotta have new trauma to give these new movies stakes, and I think this might be our argument for that. Roman Bridger, I once again think is gonna be an AI voice alongside old Dubert here. I think these two characters are going to be voices emulated by our ghost faces who are taunting our main characters. Like I was talking about before, this is likely going to be between a phone call with Ghostface and Sidney, however. Roman is, of course, her secret brother, so that would only make sense. Sam Reckner is one of those guys that, just like Asa Gurman, he kind of has the look for Ghostface, but I really think is going to be a red herring. Ultimately, I think red herring right here, Sam Reckner's going to die. Sidney Prescott, not too much to say about this character. We've already heard Kevin Williamson and Neve Campbell say that they would never sign on or never make a new Scream movie where this character dies. She's gonna survive. Nothing else to write there, unfortunately. Now, Stu Macher, this is the one that gets complicated. This is the one that gets real complicated, real complex. I really think Stu is gonna come back in a flashback, because I think that whoever our killers are, likely these two, are going to be connected to Stu in some way. I do think that they're going to be utilizing his voice for AI to like kind of have a conversation with Sidney Prescott again. Same thing with Roman Bridger and Dewey with Stu. But I think we'll actually get some sort of flashback with this character where Anna Camp recounts something that happened before in the past. We kind of got to do that with Billy in the last two flicks where they de-aged him, so to say, and now I think we're going to do that with Stu for maybe 7 and now moving into 8. I hope that's the case with him, because if they announced all 3 of these legacy characters to be coming back, reprising the roles of their Ghostface characters from the past, and then they're just doing the AI voices, that is going to be so disappointing. At least have one of them on screen, which so many fans want to see Stu come back in some way, shape, or form. This could be a nice way to do it without completely, destroying the franchise. Tatum Evans, I think that Sidney Prescott's daughter is also safe. I feel like she's going to survive. Definitely a character who will be in harm's way quite a few times, however, but I don't think is going to die by any means. I think it would just be too harsh to Sidney to have her husband and her daughter die in the same movie. And again, I know how protective these creatives are of that character. You got to have some sort of extension of her survive in this movie.
I want to be a fighter like you.
That whole line delivery, I feel like, comes from the fact that she's dealing with the loss of her father now. You know, this is not only is Ghostface coming after her, but Ghostface has taken something away from her now. I feel like that could really motivate this character to step up and be the fighter that her mom is, essentially. I don't know. I think that might be kind of cool. Might be a way to push this character into full final girl territory. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even remember his name. Tim Simmons, is that what it is? Yeah, Tim's dead, dude. Are you kidding me? What? I remember when this guy got announced and everyone was like, Jake, you gonna make an update video about that? I'm like, no. Look at that mustache, man. He's Mark Evans' police partner and he's gonna die first. There's no way this character is living or is anything more special than that. So this is my prediction when it comes to Scream 7. I think that basically our leading ladies are going to take over this film and still survive. I think all these characters are definitely gonna be dead. Here's our kill count. 9 deaths. Hopefully we have more than that though. I wanted to mention this in this video, but there are 2 more cast members who haven't been confirmed 100% to be in the film, which is why they're not on today's list. But I think that these other 2 people, I won't get into it, but I have covered this in previous videos before. I definitely think that is going to add 2 more bodies to the count, however. So although we have 9 on the list now, make that 11. I definitely think we're going back to 2 ghost faces with this movie. I see this being an attempt to return to form. You know what I mean? I definitely see that from this movie. And what's the best way to do that? Have 2 ghost faces again. And our legacy characters, I feel like this is how we're going to handle them. One being in a flashback and also the AI voice, while the rest of them are just going to be AI replicated voices. And God, I hope the marketing team didn't just announce all 3 of these very big players in the Scream franchise to be returning just to put butts in seats, essentially. If they're literally just lending their voices to this film, well, guess what? Most of the Scream sequels have had previous dead members come back to do voice roles. Scream 5, Scream 3 especially. This is really no different than that.
So we're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
We have some really interesting Scream 7 updates this morning coming from the luscious lips of Matthew Lillard himself, as well as the OG Tatum, Rose McGowan. Let's talk a little bit about this. Digging into this over on our friends page, Scream Obsessed, they recently did an interview with Rose McGowan, OG Tatum herself. She talked a little bit about how cool it was that the franchise is still honoring her character from the original film that of course passed away with that ridiculous neck snap in the garage. That cartoonish sound effect, as well as her goofy lines, make me laugh every time I hear them. Talking about how Sydney named her daughter Tatum after her character, she said, I think Scream is one of the greatest fandoms in the world. I know I'm biased, but I believe this is true. Sydney naming her baby Tatum, it's made my heart happy, and I know it's made many others happy. It feels right and good. Tatum lives. Although Rose won't be reprising her role in the upcoming flick, presumably like a lot of the other dead characters who have already been announced to show up in this movie, there's no saying that it won't happen in the future, especially considering that I think Scream 7 is getting into some flashbacks. We can't forget some of Courtney Cox's comments from earlier this year, saying that a big motivator behind getting Dewey, David Arquette, back in Scream 7 was to be able to test the romance between these 2 characters again. How do you do that unless Dewey is back on screen with Gale Weathers again? Last I checked, Dewey is very, very dead. Cold in the ground.
Yes, today.
Sorry for making some of you relive that trauma. I love Dewey so much. He is my absolute favorite Scream character, but undoing that death would be undoing his fantastic character arc that I think is perfect as it stands. We're starting to get to that point in the franchise where a lot of the character arcs are just going on for a little too long, spinning their wheels. And it makes me want to roll my eyes at these once beloved characters, which I really, really hope does not happen to Sidney Prescott here in Scream 7. I am keeping my fingers crossed they have a genuinely good reason to be bringing her back. Don't disrespect Sydney like how you did with Gale Weathers in Scream 6. Anyways, carving into the meat of this video, we have a new interview with Mr. Matthew Lillard, who can be seen alongside Skeet Ulrich in the upcoming Five Nights at Freddy's 2, coming out in just a few weeks here. Humble brag, but your boy is going to be able to see that one early before its release on December 5th. I'll have a spoiler-free review of that one early on in December. Chatting with Josh Wilding over on his YouTube channel, Lillard spoke about all his upcoming projects, also including Daredevil Born Again and Mike Flanagan's Carrie series. In regards to Scream 7, he praises actress McKenna Grace, who he's worked with on a few projects now, as well as Kevin Williamson's direction. He promises that this movie gets us back to the original feel of the Scream movies, but does throw some love towards the radio silence boys, as he calls them. It kinda sounds like he flubs their name during the interview too. Can we roll that clip?
The radio flyer was fantastic directors.
After Matthew Lillard shit all over Scream 6 earlier this year, calling it too violent, it would make sense to me if he wasn't super fond of these filmmakers. I mean, I get it. Scream 6 is a massive statement saying that Stu Macher is dead, and like he says during this interview, that's kind of been his shtick for a little while here. How else can one interpret Ethan's death from Scream 6, where they literally use the same TV from Scream 96 to kill one of their own ghost faces?
That's how that in a scary movie went.
I mean, come on, dude. Outside of the usual teasing of his character's return here, Matthew also says that the flick has had early test screenings, saying, "I think early on testing has been through the roof, which is thrilling, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens." If an early test screening has happened for the flick, I'm glad to hear that it was received positively. I really hope I like this movie when it drops. Doing updates on this movie has truly been a roller coaster. Some great things and some truly awful things as well. After that trailer, I'm definitely a little more excited for the film that's seemingly teasing a dark return to form, but I'm going in cautiously optimistic. Now, does this interview confirm Stu's return like many are already saying? I don't think so. Writer-director Kevin Williamson has had a lot more to say about this entry in the past few months. During one Collider interview in particular, the series creator stated, "There's always a new killer and a new motive. We have that mystery element. That's what I love about Scream. That's what I wanted it to be, and I'm so blessed that it became what it became." As much as the Stu fans will argue with me on this one, there is just no substantial mystery if we bring back any dead character. It's not just Stu. I love this guy, but if you bring back a dead character in general, there's not going to be a good rewatchable mystery. And you can't just tell me that Stu is gonna have accomplices, so there will still technically be new people. That's not gonna be the big reveal. That's gonna be so pushed off to the side like Quinn or Ethan in Scream 6. Stu Macher would be the big reveal in that hypothetical film. It takes the mystery out entirely because it would sucker punch the audience who has been trying to figure out who the killer is the entire time by looking at the new potential suspects, just to render all of the setup for all of these new characters is totally pointless. Think about how rewatchable a lot of these movies are, going back and seeing all the little clues that our new characters are laying down throughout that maybe we didn't know on the first go around were clues to begin with. You would have none of that if they resurrected a dead character in Act 3. There's no way Stu Macher's gonna be hanging out in the cast with a mustache the entire time and Sydney's not gonna recognize him. This is not a "I think you should leave" sketch.
Someone drove a hot dog-shaped car through the window!
Come on, whoever did this, just confess. We promise we won't be mad.
I wouldn't even care about any other new ghost faces that were working with Stu too if they got revealed. They would be totally outshined by the Stu Macher reveal, which obviously would be the focus. He would have to be in charge of whatever was going on in this new movie. Nothing else would make sense unless he's like a golem living in a basement that these characters are like worshipping. Thankfully, it seems as if the writer and director of the film understands this. One of the most important updates we've gotten regarding Scream 7 is learning that Kevin is also writing this one alongside Scream 5 and 6 scribe Guy Busick. This gives me faith that this is going to be a bona fide Scream movie that still tries to be ambitious, but stays faithful to certain tried and true traditions. Regarding that, Kevin Williamson told Collider earlier this year, "There's always a new killer and a new motive. We have that mystery element. That's what I love about Scream. That's what I wanted it to be, and I'm so blessed that it became what it became." I am all about this series trying out some new stuff. I think that's what gives a lot of these sequels some weight and a reason to exist. But you can't deviate or sacrifice what makes these films so great in the first place. One of those things, obviously, maybe my favorite thing about the entire franchise, is how we get a new murder mystery each time. This isn't a Friday the 13th or a Nightmare on Elm Street or even Halloween, where we get the same killer going after people the entire time. There's always somebody new underneath the Scream mask. That's what gives this franchise so much personality with each new entry. It would be a tragedy if the franchise ever lost that. This next one night is one that I know people have gone back and forth on. Like I said, I did a video about this earlier in the week, and most comments were about Mindy, were about like this character. A lot of people want to see this character die, and I'll give my argument in a second why I don't think that would really be the best move for Scream 7, but I am curious what you think about the first Meeks Martin twin.
Yeah, listen, the twins are very interesting. I think 5 and 6, you got this roller coaster for both of them as far as their character and what they did, what they didn't do, what happened to them, what didn't happen to them. Jasmine, and of course we're going to get to Mason as well, but Jasmine is so talented. I do think there's times when she wasn't given the proper vehicle, to do what she was meant to do as a character. I know she's the stand-in for Randy or Kirby, but I also feel like she was never able to really like make it her own. Like when Hayden did what she did in 4, it didn't feel like some lesser copy of Jamie Kennedy. It felt like Hayden doing her thing, spunky and blah 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 blah. She could throw a crack at you like a whip, boom, and she was very, very articulate, and she could just destroy you with words. That's the type of character she was. Mindy, on the other hand, it just seems like they haven't given her enough to do. My hope, and this is what I'm going to say, she survives. And my hope is that in this movie, she really gets some really cool moments. I mean, she definitely looks badass in the trailer, when she's fighting with Ghostface. Like, I'm glad to see that. Even if she does die, I'm glad to see that she has that moment instead of always getting stabbed and kind of just like, you know what I mean? Like, let's go, let's do something, So I really think she will survive. I really do.
And to that point, I just think it would be it would be defeatist to just kill this character off and say, well, that didn't work, let's move on. Jasmine is a good actress. You made a really good point saying that she is very talented. I love her on what little I have seen of Yellow Jackets. Please, for the love of God, no spoilers in the chat. That is such a good show. If I have that spoiled, I'm going to lose my mind on stream. But what I have seen of her in other projects, I feel like she totally shines. In Scream, I feel like she's limited because she's being forced into a role that, in my humble opinion, wasn't necessarily being approached in the best way. Our buddy Fate goes on a lot of rants, sometimes some crazy rants that I just can't get behind. But the one thing I do definitely agree with him on is how they're approaching Mindy as a character. I just think that she's the exact opposite of Randy, and that's why it's not necessarily working. So can they course correct with this film? I think it would be way cooler opposed to killing her. I think it would be way cooler if they could find a way to make this character work in like a new way, to make her stand out as a Randy character and not just repeat exactly the same thing as Randy, but give her own thing to do. That does work, and not just being wrong about everything and yelling at everybody about it.
Right. I mean, it would be cool to see if the movie had enough twists and turns or enough moments where we're kind of in the dark a little bit. Well, it would be cool if Mindy was able to figure some stuff out, like to kind of help lead, whoever she's with. Obviously, she'll probably be around Chad and probably Gail, but you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of, in other words, prove herself. She comes across as intelligent, right? It's like, I want to see it. I want to see it in action. Don't tell me, show me. And that would be cool, I think. And it'd be a big win. I know myself and I know you and others, look at Melissa, from 5 to 6. I thought they did some great stuff with her. She had moments to shine more. She had moments to show how smart of a final girl she could be. She was always the one saying, yep, let's get out of New York. And I'm like, yep, that's what I would do. She was ready to make the best choice almost each time, even though sometimes, circumstances happened or some other character said, no, like Tara, no, I'm not leaving New York. And it's like, wah, wah. But Melissa as Sam was great in that film. I would love to see Mindy have that type of level up.
I totally agree. I really, really, really just want to see that happen for this character, because it did happen with Sam, and it was a character that, again, I think they struggled to kind of figure out all the way, but I think they did get there in that last entry. So can they make that happen with Mindy here? I really hope so. A second Scream 7 trailer is allegedly slated for sometime next month. Let's talk a little bit about it. According to scooper Daniel Richtman, the second trailer is ready for release. The Beyond reporter, another third-party source, says we can expect the second trailer on December 4th, next Thursday. Thank you to the Snoop Doggy Dog for pointing that out to me over on Twitter. I didn't know he was a Scream fan. Take this with a grain of salt, of course, but this does make a lot of sense considering that next week Five Nights at Freddy's 2 comes out, which features Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich, the original Ghostface killers from the first Scream movie. At least one of those guys will be featured in Scream 7. I really hope both, though. This would be a perfect marketing opportunity for Scream 7 to put a new trailer right in front of that upcoming film. Many folks in the community don't even want to see any more marketing for the film, however, in fear that they're gonna get something else spoiled. I just had a chat with M from Horror this past weekend talking about exactly this.
I initially said, I don't want to see another trailer because it's gonna spoil stuff, but now I'm just like, I need it.
I'm ready for more spoilers, potentially. You know, screw it.
Potentially.
I think with how much was potentially shown to us in the trailer from this past October, like a certain character's death and a major link to the past, a lot of theories are sadly already out the window. I'm pretty confident about a few character deaths at this point and how they're going to be using some of the new characters. Scream movies are supposed to be filled with twists and turns, right? Hopefully the first big update to kick off next month doesn't ruin any more surprises in the upcoming film. However, I am excited to see some more footage from this movie. I'm kind of foaming at the mouth for it. Are you all excited to get the second Scream 7 trailer hopefully sometime soon? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.